Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome back to Kuwait Motor Town. This is round 3 of the F4 UAE Championship 2023, and we are set for qualifying. It's a very different circuit compared to what we saw 3 days ago for the start of the previous round, and even more different compared to yesterday when the sun was out and it was baking hot and shining. Today, the clouds have come back, the fog is in the air, and the wind is fever pitch strong. It is a really tricky environment for the drivers to set qualifying laps out there. There's even the possible onset of rain at some point during the course of this morning. Hello everybody, Jake Sanson here with you once again for the third round of 5 in this 2023 F4 UAE Championship certified by FIA. And what a battle we are starting to emerge with at the halfway stage of this season. The green light goes on at the end of the pit lane, and this miniature oasis here in Kuwait really is being treated to a very different set of weather conditions to what we saw even yesterday during testing. It was bone dry, it was sunny, it was hot. Not today. It's chilly, it's cool, it's cold, and it's very windy. Perfect for the tyres, perhaps not so great for all the data that was gathered yesterday. Now the drivers have got to do all the hard work again. They did have a warm-up session this morning, but it wasn't long. So everybody's got to try and dial in a decent qualifying lap. This is the first of 2 15-minute sessions now. And of course, the results of this first session will set the grid for race 1 later this afternoon. The results of session 2 will set the grid for race 3 tomorrow afternoon. So obviously it's very critical to get this session right. Everybody's going to be pushing for the extremes here, trying to get the most out of this weekend. Just talking you through the results from the previous practice sessions will give you some idea as to who is on the pace after a weekend of discovery and mystery 3 days ago. Because obviously we are midweek now. Tuesday and Wednesday is when the racing will take place. Very unusual. I have to say I quite like it. I don't like waiting to the weekend for racing to get underway. So it's quite nice to be here Tuesday and Wednesday in the middle of the week and able to go racing again. Perhaps a few more championships and race circuits should follow suit. However, it does give us a very interesting indication as to how things have progressed. In session 1 yesterday, James Wharton was the fastest, 0.053 faster than this man, Ugo Ugachukwu. So the 2 main title protagonists were still the fastest 2 in yesterday's practice session, ahead of Valentin Klus, Teofil Nile, Noah Stromsted and Tuukka Tarpanen. So the big players are still there towards the top 10 because Kanato Lee, Arvid Lindblad, Valerio Renicella and Will McIntyre were also in the top 10. Will McIntyre, of course, using this campaign to prepare for his British assault later on in the season when that begins in April. But it was still very interesting to see how it all played out. And yesterday's session saw Ugo Ugachukwu top the timesheets again by 0.031 to Valerio Renicella. James Wharton was only 99 thousandths of a second off Ugachukwu's pace. Al-Azadi was right up in 4th, then Will McIntyre, Zachary David, and Akshay Bora, who went 7th fastest yesterday in the second practice session, ahead of James Bezique, Tuukka Tarpanen, and Valentin Klus, just ahead of Arvid Lindblad and Federico Rifai. Now, what can we tell you about the change of things from one race meeting to the next? I was going to say one race weekend to the next, but this isn't a weekend, it is midweek. So the only driver change from round 2 compared to round 3 is down at Mumbai Falcons, where Indian talent Mohammed Ibrahim in car number 10 has been replaced by his stablemate Rishon Rajiv, who will race number 28 this week. And the official word, having discussed it with team principal Moy Tungakar, I asked what is the reason for Rishon in the car. We said, well, he's a very talented youngster, as is Mohammed Ibrahim. We want to give Rishon a fair chance in F4 UAE to get up to speed, so he'll race here and he'll race in Dubai, just the same way that Mohammed Ibrahim did, only in the different order. Whichever driver does the best over the course of the 4 rounds, i.e. whichever driver performs the most impressively over their 2 weekends, will get the nod for Yas Marina, the 5th and final round of the championship. So if Rishon Rajiv performs better in this weekend and the next one than Mohammed Ibrahim did, it'll be him in the car at Abu Dhabi for the season finale. So that gives you a sort of an insight. There are more driver changes this week, but over in Formula Regional. So we'll come to that when we get into qualifying for that championship a little bit later on. But for the moment, our attention is focused purely on F4 UAE Championship racing. And it really is going to be a sensational battle all the way through this competition, because now the drivers have something that they didn't have 3 days ago: knowledge of the circuit and what it will do. So a fabulous situation. Hello to everybody who's tuned in via the Kuwait Motortown YouTube channel or via Facebook or YouTube, depending on where it is that you're watching. I've got the Formula 4 UAE Championship stream in front of me and I'm taking questions and comments as much as possible. Bimo AA says, bit odd to have a midweek race, not going to lie, but as long as it is a race, I'm watching. Good man. You know exactly where you're supposed to be. Fantastic stuff. Midweek racing. It's going to catch on, I really hope. But as you can see, the fog has really descended over the Kuwait Motortown circuit. It's very different compared to what it was. So now it's a really interesting situation. It's worth bearing in mind what the lay of the land is in terms of the championship standings coming into this weekend as well. Things have changed a little bit going into the third round of the championship. Yugo Chukwu still leads the way on 105 points, but Valerio Minicella has now come up to second place, 31 points behind him. That's not that big a gap in the grand scheme of things when we have 9 races still to go. And I spoke to Valerio yesterday. He is motivated. He is absolutely on fire for this. He says, we are just getting into our stride. I haven't even won a race yet. Wait until I do. James Wharton is now a race winner. He got a first and a second 3 days ago when we had round 2. James Wharton is up to third place then. 4 points back from Minicella, 9 points ahead of Tuka Tarpanen, and 10 ahead of Arvid Lindblad. It is still very much game on for anybody in the top 5 of this championship. But this is going to be a stronger weekend for so many drivers based on the fact that this time they have knowledge of the circuit. They know what to do. They know where the corners go. They've got data to work on. They can go quicker, potentially, than they did last time. They know more. So, for the record, the first flying lap on the circuit sees Noah Stromsted go to the top spot, ahead of Yugo Chukwu and Alexander Abkasava. Then Zachary David in front of Valerio Minicella, Nicola Lacorte and Teofil Nal, from Theo Jensen, Arvid Lindblad and Valentin Klus. But that is going to change dramatically over the course of the session as Amélie de Reus goes into her first proper flying lap. I say proper flying lap because, of course, their out lap doesn't really count, and their first lap on the circuit under a complete run is basically a banker. It really gets you up to speed. Now we're getting to see some good laps coming in as Valentin Klus crosses the line on a 156.1. Now, we did see a 154 in qualifying originally 3 days ago, so no doubt we will see a lot faster than that, but it's certainly interesting to see who's starting to get up to speed nice and quickly. Klus just getting in a banker of a 156.1. James Pazik on a 156.4. So the drivers are getting there. It's going to take some time, we're not going to lie. They'll have to wait probably until 4 to 5 minutes left of the session before we really start to see what the contenders can do. And certainly looking at the pace yesterday, we had a 154.5 from Yugo Chukwu in the second practice session, but a 154.2 in the morning when it was cooler and colder. So expect a low 154 for pole position in qualifying because it's cooler air today. And in the pre-practice session this morning, we actually had a 154.0 from Yugo Chukwu, so we may even go into the 153s. Anybody that gets into the 153s, by the way, you can pretty much guarantee they're going to be starting from the front. So it's definitely going to be interesting to see what sort of times we come up with today. Iveson Martins asks, is Fernando Barrichello on track today? I'm afraid he is not. He has not made it to Kuwait. We're hoping that he will return to the championship in time for Dubai. Car number 30 exceeded track limits at turn 15. Lap 3, which is the one he's currently on, is disallowed. So that is unfortunate for Theo Jensen. So still the battles are really exciting. Is there a timing screen, asks Radian Texelt, where you can watch along with live timing if you go to getraceresults.com. And one of the first options at the top is going to be Kuwait Motortown. You can follow along with the whole race weekend via that timing screen. So you can follow it along. I will still give you up-to-date everything as it happens. Arvid Lindblad goes provisional pole, 155.072. Klus in second. Minicella is third from Bazik, Niall, Bula, Olivieri, Sebastian Murray, then Luciano Morano and Amélie de Reus in the top 10 for the moment. But things are going to change. Car 95 exceeded track limits at turn 15. That is lap 4 disallowed for the 95. As up to second comes Hiro Yamakoshi, the Japanese driver under a Philippine license in the pinnacle, up to second place ahead of Klus, Minicella and Bazik. So more lap times coming in. Beaton up to 7th, Quintarelli up to 9th, Bergmeister up to 12th. We'll try and keep an eye on everybody. We're still waiting for the big guns to come out from Mumbai Falcons and from the Yas Heat Racing Academy as well. The Santilot cars have not really hit their stride yet either. So there's still quite a few drivers who have yet to show their full cards. Good start to the session from Quintarelli, also from Kai Daryanani, the Indian driver who has barely done any racing whatsoever. So let's see how it all continues here. Lindblad is on the pace though, a 1:55.0. They've got to find another second if they want to match the practice times they did this morning in fairly similar conditions. Looks like one of the high-techs is trying to balance in a good lap here and start a fresh one. Car 88 exceeded track limits at turn 19. That is lap 4 disallowed for Kai Daryanani. Lindblad is top on a 1:55.0. Tukka Tarpanen goes second. Zachary David comes third. Here we go. This is where the qualifying really starts. Drivers are starting to push in for some big times. 4 minutes 44 to go. And Lindblad, Tarpanen, David, Rinicella up to 4th now. Yamakoshi, James Wharton goes P6. Lacorte, Klus, Ugachukwu is 9th. Stromstead is now 10th. So still the battle goes on. Remember, you can follow along if you type into your screens getraceresults.com, getraceresults.com. Hit the button for Kuwait Motor Town. You'll find it, and you'll be able to watch along in real time. Car 6 exceeded track limits, so that time has been disallowed. So right down to the back of the field once again then goes car number 6. That's unfortunate. And I'm afraid that is a real problem for Kanato Lee, the high-tech driver, who's now got to bang in another fast lap time. Yamakoshi goes second again, a 1:55.1. Right, here come the purple sectors. Arvid Lindblad goes fastest in sector 1 with a 24.3. That is pretty quick. James Wharton is on the same sort of pace. Ugachukwu, less than a 1/10 of a second off that. Purple in sector 2, Yuga Ugachukwu. Tarpanen is very close to that. So is Zach David. So is Keanu Alazade going quickly. So some very strong positions at the moment. There is the championship leader, Yuga Ugachukwu, 31 points ahead of Valerio Rinicella. He is purple in sector 2, comparable in sector 1. There's a really good chance here for Ugachukwu to go top spot. Car 3 exceeded track limits. That is Jesse Carrasquedo, the Mexican. And across the line comes Ugachukwu. Does he go top? Yes, he does. 1:54.251. Almost half a second quicker than Stromstead and Wharton. So Noah Stromstead comes up to second place. James Wharton is 3rd. Lindblad is 4th. Rinicella is 5th. And Yamakoshi in 6th ahead of David and Tarpanen. So the battle rages on once again. So let's see if we continue to battle away. Yuga Ugachukwu has just gone top and he's gone fastest again in sector 1. Another purple first sector. Car 9 exceeded track limits. That time disallowed. That is Valentin Klus. And Valentin Klus appears to have had to bail on this lap. So Valentin Klus is going to start again, tagging in behind Lindblad. Lindblad crosses the line, only good enough for 4th. Not a great sector 3. Had to do it again. In fact, he exceeded track limits at 15, so the time is disallowed regardless. It wasn't faster anyway, so it makes no difference. Yuga Ugachukwu. Noah Stromstead in a brilliant 2nd. Wharton is 3rd. Lindblad is 4th. We are very close to the mark now, 1:54.2. We managed a 1:54.0 in practice this morning. There is Valerio Rinicella trying to battle for his first win of the season. He's been 2nd 3 times. He is now 2nd in the standings. Look at the way he's having to wrestle with the wheel through this quadra effect of this quintuplet of 5 right-handers and then into the long flowing left-hander that precedes it. What an amazing challenge this is for Rinicella this weekend. Well, these 2 days, I should say. I'm going to have to get used to saying that. But Ugachukwu, not so strong in the 2nd split this time. Has had to bail out of the lap by the look of it. Rinicella just getting the number 12 car out of the way. That is the RSGP of Alexander Abkasava. So Abkasava out of the way now, but he's being held up by the Mumbai Falcons on this lap. Ugachukwu goes back to the top again. Not an improvement on the lap, though. Stromstead, Wharton, Lindblad, Rinicella, Yamakoshi, David, the final minute of qualifying. It's now or never to get a decent lap time in. And Teofil Nal is struggling. All of the main protagonists are in the top 10. Ugachukwu is leading, Wharton is third, Lindblad is fourth, Rinicella fifth, from David in seventh, Tarpanen in eighth, and Valentin Klus is in 10th in front of Teofil Nile. So some big challenges from the big players in this field already, but now they're on their final flying lap. Lindblad is about to start his final flying lap. Here we go. And Lindblad is dropping to fourth now. 1:55.0. He needs this to be the perfect lap. Fastest of all in Sector 1 is now Tukka Tarpanen. The Mumbai Falcons driver gets a 24.2. That is a purple Sector 1. Ugachukwu can't match it. Still they are pushing. Is there going to be a surprise charge forward? Car 5 exceeded track limits. That is Will McIntyre. His lap 7 is disallowed. The checkered flag is out. It's now or never to get those lap times in. Keanu Al-Azari finishes in the top 10. 8th position for the UAE driver. Noah Lark can only be 16th. Kai Dorianani, 25th for the moment. Very good work. Akshay Bora and Federico Rafai finish off in the top 20. But we need a big name to come through here. And we're going to wait another 15 seconds or so for Yuga Ugachukwu. He'll be the first of the big names to come through. But Tukka Tarpanen, he's on a pretty hot lap. A 45.1 for Sector 2 is not as fast as it could be, though. He's currently down in 9th. He should be able to go top 4 across the line. Come the big players. Ugachukwu has finished up. Wharton goes second. Wharton goes second alongside Ugachukwu. Stromstad is third. David is fourth. Karashkedo comes up to 5th. What about Lindblad? Lindblad is looking fairly consistent on the lap. Tukka Tarpanen has not improved. He remains down in 9th. Very unfortunate for him, but we still have Klus, Lindblad and Yamakoshi all on a fast lap, as well as James Bazik. Lindblad has a chance here. 6th position. Not the fastest of all in sectors 1 and 2, but still a quick lap. He could go up from P6 here. Out of the final turn, it's a clean final corner. Does he move up from 6? No, he does not. So Lindblad remains P6. Valentin Klus, however, also doesn't move. And Hiyu Yamakoshi will finish the lap with no change. Bazik pits in. So there you have it. Yuga Ugachukwu gets a 1:54.1. Now we're going to have a look at something here. This is a replay of a big mistake, I'm afraid, on the lap for the 95. That's Jack Beaton getting it horribly wrong, and that throws away a competitive lap time. Very easily done in qualifying. All the pressure is on you. Car 15 exceeded track limits on the final lap. That is Lena Bueller. Her time will sadly be disallowed as well. So, pole position goes the way of Yuga Ugachukwu for race 1 ahead of James Wharton. Take a bow, Noah Stromstad. 3rd position for PHM. They really are making massive gains. There is Noah Stromstad, I do believe. No, apologies, that's his teammate. That is the 26, the sister PHM car. Not a bad run from all of our competitors. There is Dion Gowda in the Rodin Carlin. And there's your pole sitter. Yuga Ugachukwu in the silver race machine helmet. Yuga Ugachukwu, very identifiable in that all-silver helmet in tribute to the legend that is Mario Andretti. What an astonishing session for Yuga Ugachukwu. He's been fast all day, shaking her head in disbelief, Bianca Bustamante. Not able to get the pace she wanted. 22nd, though. Still better than she did in Dubai. But Yuga Ugachukwu currently in pole position, looking strong for race 1. Later this afternoon, he's on pole. So a very solid and smooth run from Yuga Ugachukwu, who's had a very positive junior career so far. He was the European karting champion at junior level. Moved up to Danish and British F4, did a great job there, and here he is in F4 UAE. Surely not long till he steps up to the next level. But the American wants to leave his mark on the F4 worldwide. Another great run, half a second quicker than James Wharton. That isn't just a pole position time, that's dominant. They clearly didn't learn all the lessons 3 days ago. They've certainly learned them now. And they switch tyres, ready for the session number 2. Very glad we actually managed to get through the entirety of the session without yellow flags or red flags in qualifying. But half a second is quite impressive. Now, your questions and your comments are very much appreciated. Thank you for sending them in if you're watching on the F4 UAE Championship thread. Central 99 asks, do you think Hugo could jump straight to F3 if he wins F4? Now, I know what you're thinking there is. It's only one number less. But there is such a big difference in horsepower between the F4 car and the F3 car. It's a huge jump. And it does make a lot more sense for drivers to start considering all sorts of different stopgaps in between. You've got a lot of options. You've got Euro Formula Open, you've got Formula Regional, of course, and you have the new Euro Cup 3. So it is a big challenge, a big jump to go straight from F4 to F3. Drivers have done it before, but you do worry, is it too much too soon? And I promise you, I've spoken to a fair few drivers about this in the past. Formula Regional is a very frustrating car to drive because it's very heavy, it's very physical. But drivers are so much better for doing Formula Regional before they get to F3 than jumping straight from F4, because you learn so many tricks, especially if you also want to go from F3 straight to F2, because the F2 car is quite similar to the Formula Regional in terms of its feel. It's heavy, it's brutal, it's very physical. So you need to have a fairly early understanding of how tough that car is. But the F4 drivers, quite a few of them have come straight in from karting. So this is such a big deal. There are so many great stories in the field. So if you imagine that from the front of the field to the back, there's little more than 3 seconds covering 38 drivers, that shows you how astonishingly good the level of talent is in the F4 UAE Championship. Pound for pound, I've been watching F4 for about a decade now, and I promise you, looking at the wealth of the talent in the F4 UAE Championship grid, it is probably, pound for pound, the most talented F4 Championship grid I think there's ever been. Italian has come close a few times. British has on a couple of occasions. And certainly the German F4 Championship in its heyday really was a massive plethora of talent. It's a real shame it's not going to be there for 2023. But certainly looking at this year's F4 UAE Championship grid, when you've got 38 cars on the grid, and I can look genuinely at every single driver in the F4 grid here in Kuwait, and there's not a single poor driver in the grid. There's not a single driver that you look at and go, they don't deserve to be here. They all do. And they're all making different stages of their development at different speeds, at different levels of progress. It's phenomenal. So more good questions coming in. Jet Saragi Motorsport asks, do you think Jack Beaton's current performance is adequate to be competitive next season or later on? I think he's doing a fair job now. Again, all of these things have to be taken into context. When you've got 38 cars in the field, you drop an apex and you've lost a tenth of a second. That's the equivalent to 8 to 12 positions. It's so close in this field. You cannot afford to make a single error. And this is the thing we keep referring back to with F4, with Formula Regional, with Formula 3. This is not like playing soccer for Manchester United. If you're there in the under-17s, the under-21s, your matches are not televised. You're not under the scrutiny of the microscope. You're off the radar. You do these things in secret. Whereas here in motor racing, you are under scrutiny from your very first professional international karting race. Everything is live streamed. Everything is watchable. So your pressure cooker bubbles over way more intensely in motor racing than it does in any other form of sport. So take these things into context. We are so brutal to these young talents from a very young age, but these guys are throwing themselves into the fire so early on in their junior ladder, so early on in their careers. They've got to make their mistakes in front of all of us watching. That's tough. That's big pressure. So to answer your question, Jack Beaton very much making the right progress he needs to. He's doing it at the pace that is consistent. So a really interesting situation. And Very Vanilla asks me, am I a Man United fan? I certainly am not. I'm not even a football fan. So there you go. It's just a good metaphor, that's all. It's just a good simile. Here we go again, Q2. Now this session, again, 15 minutes in length. And this sets the pace for race 3's grid tomorrow. And just as we talk about it, it doesn't look great on that camera lens, but I can tell you from outside the commentary box window, the sun is trying to push away this fog and push away this mist. It really is trying to work the magic. Out onto the circuit come these young men and women, hoping to grace the race circuits of Indianapolis, Le Mans, Monaco, Bathurst, Macau. All of the great cathedrals of speed one day. And this place is turning into one of them. I guarantee you, you have not heard the last of Q8 Motortown. This is just a first step into international competition. The drivers and the teams, I've been talking to them all the way through these last 5-6 days. They like this place. They like this place a lot. Once you get behind the wheel and you're powering around the circuit, it is just phenomenal. Sebastian Montoya told us on the live stream a couple of days ago, Sector 3 is one of the best Sector 3s he's ever driven in motorsport. And that's when you compare it to the likes of Spa, Monza, Paul Ricard, all the Formula 1 venues. So I don't think you've heard the last of this place. I think it's just getting started. And what I love about it as well is that the expertise of Herman Tilke that's come up with some amazing race circuits around the world in the last 20 years, like Sepang, like Shanghai, like Yas Marina, like Baku. He obviously had a great hand in Baku. I was a doubter of that particular race circuit. I didn't think it was going to be all that special. It certainly is though, isn't it? And his expertise has really come up to the fore here again. It's not just about a good circuit where people can come and go racing. It's where the driver really gets tested. And on this circuit, they really do get tested. So here they come once again around the course in the F4 United Arab Emirates Championship. We have now got our first out lap completed. The first flying lap isn't going to be the fastest one, but they're going to be around 1:54.2, 1:54.3 for the pole time for qualifying. This is where these guys earn their bread and butter. The setup makers, the setup meisters, the change makers. These are the ones that really do give the drivers the tools and the resources that they need to improve. And it's so important to make sure that the head games of the driver are in the right place. Mental health is such a big deal at this level. You've only got to look at the prolific superstar kart racer Thomas ten Brinker, Dutch ace, absolute megastar, came into single-seaters. The pressure was too much. He walked away. He said, I can't do it. It's not for me. If you love this sport, you've got to continue to love it. Yuga Chukwu dialing in for another good run. Just in front of his teammate in the Prema outfit, Nicola Lacorte. Still warming up the tyres and brakes. This isn't going to be the fast lap, as you can see. Still just dialing in. Lap 2 isn't going to be the big one either. Lap 3 is when it's going to really start. You've got to run through this process. You've got to just get there gradually. The third round of the 2023 Formula 4 UAE Championship, certified by FIA, created back in 2016 by the now president of the FIA, Mohammed bin Sulayem, as a proving ground for race drivers in the Middle East. Well, even in these last 7 seasons of competition, some amazing names have passed through. And some amazing names are going to continue to pass through. This year's grid alone could well dictate the future of motorsport. 10 years from now, records could be rewritten at Indianapolis, Suzuka, Macau, Bathurst, Le Mans, Monaco, you name it. These kids really do have the potential skills to pay the bills, and we get to see it all develop in front of our very eyes. What a privileged position to be in. This is where you get to see all of the nurturing of a future Formula 1 world champion, all of the development of a future Indy 500 winner, all of the progress of a future Le Mans 24-hour winner. You don't get to see this in soccer, in cricket, in tennis, in rugby, even in the Olympic Games. This is a very special world, the feeder series ladder, where you really get to see just all of the hard work and the progress that these youngsters are making. Motorsport is tougher and more brutal than any other form of athletic discipline. Is it real sport? It's ultimate sport. Yuga Chukwu and Tuka Tarpanen currently on the top, a 1:57 from each, but Wharton bangs in a 1:56.5. So does David, so does Rafael Narak, the new boy who came in 3 days ago. So, for the record, drivers are starting to get the speed. So, this is going to be a fascinating scenario. But there is the provisional ranks. Narak in front of David, Wharton and Murray. From Ugachukwu, Olivieri and Tarpanen. Still early doors. This is going to be the first serious flying lap. And they've all gone through Sector 1, and guess who's on the top spot? It's Tukka Tarpanen, 24.3 from him. But Lindblad bangs in a 154.9 to get the ball rolling. That's your benchmark, ladies and gents. Arvid Lindblad throws down the gauntlet, 154.9. That's a pretty solid lap. He can do a little bit more than that, though, and I think he knows it. Fastest of all in Sector 1 is now James Pizik of the High-Tech Pulse 8 squad. So he's managed to move himself up. If I could get me worms out, I could tell you exactly what's going on. I do apologise. Lindblad, Alazzari and Quintarelli. Second and third, the Yazheat Racing Academy pair. The RHGP twins of Rafael Narak and Zachary David are currently 4th and 5th. James Wharton, P6. Pizik in P7, but going faster. 8th is Sebastian Murray, the Scottish driver for Cram Motorsport. Then Victoria Blokina for R2 Race Cavicel. And Yuga Ugachukwu, championship leader, is there or thereabouts in the top 10. But now we're going to get to see some proper lap times coming in. Ugachukwu goes second, 155.5. Tarpanen goes third, 155.6. What about Lindblad? What can he do? David goes third between Wharton and Ugachukwu. Tarpanen is still there in 5th place. What about Alazzari? Going relatively quickly. Quintarelli, Narak, Olivieri and Murray are all making gains. Rinicella goes top. Valerio Rinicella goes up to the top spot. The MP Motorsport star pushing his way forward. So a very interesting run from Rinicella. Lindblad. Abkasava's done a great job. A 154.9 from Alex Abkasava. A great lap from the Latvian. He's barely been on the radar over the last 2 rounds, and Alex Abkasava suddenly finds a magic 154.9 lap. That's really good progress. Wharton and Stromstad fast again. Teofil now, P6, then Pizik, David, Karashkedo. Up to second comes Hiyu Yamakoshi on a 154.7. Wow, Yamakoshi really is going well. Pizik comes up to 8th. Bora does a good job. Akshay Bora goes quicker than the championship leader. Akshay Bora goes faster than Yuga Ugachukwu. Noah Lyle does too. Car 33 exceeded track limits. That's Georgi Janavsky. So he loses that time. Fastest of all in Sector 2 is James Wharton. He goes P2. Apologies, that's through Sector 2, I should say. Personal best in Sector 1, session best in Sector 2. James Wharton's got a chance here, but Yuga Ugachukwu does as well. Looking at his pace, he's done a 24.5 in the first, 44.6 in the second. He's going to shoot up the rankings. He won't go pole, but he'll definitely go top 5 if he keeps this together. Through the final bend, and Ugachukwu comes across the line. Pole! He does get provisional pole. Wow! A 45.1 in the 3rd sector. Very strong, but he's beaten instantly by Wharton, who gets a 154.0. 154.0 from James Wharton. That might not be beaten. A big lap from the Australian. James Wharton goes top. And I don't think that's going to be beaten easily. Tarpanen's gone second in all of that as well. Tarpanen has gone to a 154.221. The Mumbai Falcons were ready for Ugachukwu in session 2. And they've knocked the American off the front row. Rinicella is P4, then Yamakoshi, Lindblad, Abkasava. Karashkedo comes up to fit. Red flag, red flag. The session's been red flagged. We've got an off. We've got an off in the 5 right-handers. Someone has beached it in the gravel trap. Now that is at turn 16, I do believe. I can see it from my commentary box position straight in front of me. So we've had a car come off the road about here, turn 16. It's off to the right, I do believe. So we've had an off just in the end of the 2nd sector, basically. So we need to watch this man, James Wharton. He's going to pass the scene of the incident. So he's going to go through this right-hander and then off to the left is going to be the beach driver in the gravel. So let's look left. Let's look left. Because off to the left-hand side, we don't quite get to see that, unfortunately, but there is a car beached off to the left. There it is. So that is the 66 of Hiyu Yamakoshi. What a shame. Yamakoshi, who was bidding for pole. The Japanese driver has done such a good job in his second weekend. Bitter disappointment for Hiyu Yamakoshi. And you can see where he's done it as well. You can see the black tyre marks. He's tried to push it just that tiniest bit over. And this is the problem. The crosswinds in that section of the course are brutal. They catch you at the wrong angle. You're a passenger. And look, you can see he's ridden the curbs a little too aggressively on the left-hand side of the circuit, and it spat him off. Like balancing on a tightrope while wearing ice skates. Such a difficult position to be in. You've got no control. Poor Hiyu Yamakoshi. And the pressure that all these drivers have to deal with, it just bubbles over occasionally. Wow, we've got James Wharton on a 1:54.082. I don't think that's going to be beaten. So a really solid effort from the Australian. There's Yugo Ugachukwu. Can he go quicker than Wharton on a 1:54.082? I'm not sure he can, because you've got to try and put it all together. He's got 4.5 minutes left of the session. Yes, of course you can go out, but the second lap that's a flying lap is the one that's going to be quicker. It's always the way. So he's got so much pressure to try and snatch back the pole. You can go out relatively first because they're at the end of the pit lane. They'll do the out lap as quickly as possible. They'll do the first flying lap, again, as quickly as possible. And then they'll have a few seconds in hand before they cross the line. But that's so much pressure to put on the shoulders of a young man like Yugo Ugachukwu. It's hard enough to put that pressure on anyone. Here's James Wharton, though. He's delivered a great pole position time for race 3 tomorrow. He can be pretty comfortable there. He's a 10th of a second quicker than his teammate Tarpanen. But James Wharton said himself a few days ago, where you really want to be on the starting grid is actually not pole. You really want to be third on the grid, because you can chase after the guy on pole position on the run down to turn 2 in the slipstream, and you'll have a better run. That's how he won race 1 3 days ago. Well, it looks like they're already at the scene removing Hiyu Yamakoshi's car, but sadly the Japanese driver will take no further part. Well, this gives us a bit of an opportunity to go over the results from Q1 a little bit, so we're going to go back and have a look at it, because obviously Q1 is very significant for F4 UAE Championship. Yugo Ugachukwu was in pole position, James Wharton in second place, third was Noah Stromsted of the PHM Racing team. If Wharton is right in suggesting that third is the better place to be than pole, Stromsted has a golden opportunity in race 1. Then Zachary David in fourth, Jessica Rashkedo is in a brilliant fifth, Arvid Lindblad from Valerio Benicella, Hiyu Yamakoshi, Tuka Tarpanen and Kanato Lee. So there's actually some big names there in the top 10 that are lower than you'd expect them to be. 11th was Keanu Elazari, 12th place Valentin Klus as we watch Hiyu Yamakoshi being recovered. Nicola Lacorte, Dion Gauda and Teofil Nal in the top 15. Then the last 5 of the top 20 are Rafael Narak, Will McIntyre, James Bezique, Noah Lyle and Akshay Bora. Those were the times from session 1. And we're still in session 2, of course. We're still waiting for it to be restarted. And we've only got 4.5 minutes left of it when we head back out. So a fascinating situation. There is Tuka Tarpanen, the Finn, part of the Ferrari Young Drivers Academy. Looking for a really exciting third weekend. This is only going to be his 7th, 8th and 9th car races. He has yet to win his first, but it won't be long. And once he does, the floodgates will open. He'll be a winning machine, mark my words. When he arrived at Angeville in 2019 as a sprightly young lad who could barely string 3 words together in the world of the European Karting Championship, he turned up, put it on pole, nobody had ever heard of him, and in the final, he got into the first corner in turn 1 in the lead and disappeared. Nobody ever saw him again. Well, it looks as though Yamakoshi has actually got his car started again, so he can now bring it back to the pits under his own steam. So Yamakoshi will make his way back to pit road, but I think there'll be too many stones in the car for him to get going again. So I don't actually know if Yamakoshi is going to be allowed to get back into Q2 again, because he's the cause of the red flag. In racing, the rule is very clear. If you're the cause of the red flag, you're out of the race. But in qualifying, well, you don't tend to see drivers start up again under their own steam. So this is an interesting one. I wonder if anybody's got the answer to this one. Can Hiro Yamakoshi bring it back to the pits and get going again? It looks as though he may have a flat spot. He may have a puncture because he's going very slowly. So the message that has come up onto the screen in front of me is session resume in short call. So Yamakoshi is heading for the final turn, and he'll obviously come straight into the pits. But will he be allowed to restart? That's going to be the interesting question, because he's in the top 6. He's in the hunt for pole position. He's 6/10 off Wharton. What a fascinating situation. He has brought it back into pit road, but will he be allowed to rejoin in qualifying? Interesting question. We'll find out. So what does that message mean on the live timing screen? Session resume in short call. It means be on standby, because we are about to send you back into the session any moment now. Because obviously there is a schedule to upkeep. So the drivers and the mechanics are just waiting for the call at the end of the pits. Once that green flag waves, I promise you, every single driver, if they got power under their right foot, they're going to be out. They do not want to get held in traffic. They do not want to waste any time. They need to get over that finish line at the end of their first flying lap with time still in hand. If they don't, qualifying's over. They've got to go out, complete the lap, get another lap in to warm the tyres up, complete that, and still have time. 4.5 minutes is not a lot. A really, really tough situation for all of these F4 UAE drivers. The red flag couldn't have come at a worse time, because any later, and you'd pretty much know that qualifying was all but done. Any earlier, and there would be less pressure to get the lap times done. 4.5 minutes is about the worst situation an F4 driver can have, because you're not going to have any time to dilly-dally. You can't mess around. You can't waste any time here. You've got to complete this lap and the first banker warm-up lap, if you like. This is a really, really tough situation. So let's see how it all plays out. Can anybody snatch the pole away from James Wharton? A 1:54.082 is a monster of a lap. That is very nearly the fastest lap we've ever had in an F4 car here in Q8. The session will resume at 10 minutes. 10:53. So that's 10 seconds from now. We did say it was going to be short call, and it certainly has been. Just to give you an idea, the free practice this morning, Yugo Chukwu did a 1:54.087. Wharton has beaten that time by 0.005 of a second. I'm not confident on it, but I'm fairly sure that is a candidate for the quickest lap ever set by an F4 car ever around this circuit. And this is when somebody goes to the internet and proves me wrong. Always the way. But what a battle this is set to be. Out they go. One last time in qualifying at Q8 for another year. And you can see, look, there's no messing about this time. Drivers are trying to get track position. No time to waste. Got to get into a good position. Got to get a little bit of space. You don't want to be caught in somebody's draft. You don't want to get caught in somebody's wash either. Got to race to the line. You've got to make this out lap and the next lap count. The warm-up for it is crucial. You'll only get one lap at the limit. And I can tell you that Hiro Yamakoshi has not left the pit lane. So Hiro Yamakoshi is not going to get another lap in, I don't think. That's a real shame for the Japanese driver. Look at it. It's like a race between the Prema and the two Mumbai Falcons. Wharton, Tarpanen and Nugachukwu are essentially racing each other. That's how much this qualifying lap is going to be in terms of how much at stake there's going to be. They really are pushing it. Fiona writes, I think they should try to race 38 F4 cars on every circuit just to see what will happen. There is a method of doing that. It's called sim racing. Trust me, you'll see what happens. But this is the first time it's really been done with this many cars in this many positions. And it does work as long as everybody's on the same page. Unfortunately, try and convince 38 racing drivers to be on the same page. It's not always going to work out. So here we go. This is the flying lap. Now, I'm not going to say hand on heart that this lap won't be quicker than the previous laps, but it's unlikely to be because they've still got to warm the tyres and brakes up a bit. So this lap is crucial in order to get that right. The lap after this one is more likely to be the one where the improvement will come. But that doesn't mean it's impossible. And Hiro Yamakoshi is the only one sat in the pits wondering what might have been. Now, personal best for James Wharton in Sector 1. Nobody's told him that this lap might not be so good. But he's already been beaten on this first sector by Kanato Lee. Fastest of all in Sector 1 is Valentin Klus. And there is an overtake. That's a Mumbai Falcon getting past Nugachukwu. Is that Wharton? That could be one of the most crucial overtakes this weekend, because that's given him a better track position than Nugachukwu, potentially. So Nugachukwu's bailed out. So he's got to roll on. But can he do so with enough time to get a better lap in? It was actually Tarpanen that made the overtake on Nugachukwu, not Wharton. Wharton was the one behind Tarpanen. Tarpanen is playing the serious game here. He's already gone quicker than Wharton in both Sector 1 and Sector 2. But I don't think he'll be quicker than Wharton's outright lap. He'll be setting himself up for another good one. So let's see how this is going to progress. One or two drivers may get a very fast lap time here, particularly all the way down in 32nd. Valentin Klus, he could storm up to the top 5 here. We'll keep an eye on it as the Mumbai Falcons cross the line first, and they're only going to have a handful of seconds. Look, this is how important it is to get this right. Some of them are not going to get another qualifying lap in. Here we go. Quite a few of them will, but there's going to be a handful of disappointed drivers here. That's how important it... Oh, a spin! A spin at the worst possible moment for the Santalock. Now that is Rafael Narak, I do believe. No, it's the 18 rather than the 14. I apologise. So that is a spin. And that is Luciano Morano. So Morano will not get another lap in. That's unfortunate. The time has run down to 0, and so many people have crossed the line already. Noah Lyle will not get another lap in, nor will Teofil Nile, Quintarelli, Bolduev, Hamda Al-Kubaisi, Dion Gauda, Keanu Elazadi, Jack Beaton, Theo Jensen and Georgi Janavsky. So many good drivers will not get another chance, nor will Jesse Carrasquedo. He remains 5th. For everybody else, go for it. Push like Sting. You might just get a quicker time. This is going to be tense. You cannot afford a single error in judgment now. The sun has gone back in behind the clouds. The temperature might dip by a 1/10. That's enough to really go for a fast lap here, but you cannot afford a single error. Now, what did Valentin Klus do in terms of moving up the ladder on that previous lap? He hasn't yet. So he must have had to bail from his qualifying lap, which is a big shock. That means Valentin Klus might not get a decent starting position for race 3. We'll have to watch him charge through the field then. Several drivers in trouble. Bergmeister has had to bail from his qualifying lap. He won't go any further. But what about these guys? Steady, consistent, solid. Checkered flag coming out. Is it going to be Wharton from Tarpanen and Nugachukwu with Rinacello in 4th? Or is there going to be some changes across the line? Tarpan and Wharton remain the same. So does Ugachukwu. Wharton's bailed out. He's come into the pits. There's no point. Zachary David goes P6. David moves up to 6th ahead of Yamakoshi and Lindblad. Up Cassava, P9. Niall, P10. What about Rinicella? No, he's bailed as well. So too has Noah Stromstead. Just missing out on the top 10. Wow, there's some big dramas there. But that's what I meant with the red flag coming out at the worst possible moment. You only get a few seconds to play with, and then the pressure's on. Nobody was able to improve. Nobody was able to go quicker, really, in the top 5. But Zachary David went P6. James Wharton now knows he's got pole for race 3. Great work from James Wharton. A stunning lap. And I think it needs to be verified, but that might be the fastest lap that's ever been done in an F4 car around the Kuwait Motor Town. I might be wrong, but 1:54.082 is phenomenally quick. It's 5 thousandths of a second quicker than the pace set in warm-up this morning. Rinicella has to be content with 4th position. And this is for race 3, of course, this session, which will happen tomorrow. Race 1 will happen later today, and that is taken from the results of Q1, which happened just before this. So, Q3, provisional results. James Wharton ahead of Tuka Tarpanen and Yuga Ugachukwu, Valeria Rinicella and Jessica Arashkedo. Zachary David P6 from Hio Yamakoshi, despite his red flag. Arvid Lindblad, Alex Abkasava in the top 10. Great work from Teofil Nile in 10th. Akshay Bora, 11th position on the grid for race 3. That's his best of the season. Great work. Noah Stromstead alongside him in 12th. Then Nicola Lacorte doing well in 13th ahead of Noah Lyle, Federica Rafai and Will McIntyre. And then James Bazik, Kanato Lee, Matteo Quintarelli, and in the top 20 once again, Lena Beulah. So some great performances there in the field. A lot of drivers caught out by the red flag, but that's motorsport. You've got to deal with the punches that life throws your way. And here in Kuwait Motor Town, we have Ugachukwu on pole for race 1, Wharton on pole for race 3. The race 2 grid will be decided by the fastest laps from race 1. So we still don't know how that grid is going to fade out until later. But boy, oh boy, is F4 UAE going to be brilliant again here in Kuwait. So another pole for the American Yuga Ugachukwu. That'll be for race 1. But he has to settle for 3rd for race 2, which James Wharton himself said, that's where you want to be. So Yuga Ugachukwu looks like he could have the potential here this weekend, not just to continue leading, but maybe even to extend it. The American is doing such a fine job out here in the Middle East. What a great run from the Prema driver, who's only really made a couple of mistakes all year so far. Great run, great work. So the F4 UAE Championship story is going to continue this afternoon for race 1 of 3 over the course of the next 48 hours. But a really exciting battle it is going to be in the F4 United Arab Emirates Championship certified by FIA. And a very happy Yuga Ugachukwu. He can breathe a sigh of relief now. He's got a 1st and a 3rd across 2 of the races. We'll decide the fate of the grid for race 2 later on in race 1 today. So keep your head, don't let it slip, and those points will continue to bring prizes. I'm Jake Sanson. Thanks very much indeed for being with us for the F4 UAE Championship qualifying. We'll do it all again for race 1 later on.